Welcome back to the yoga chat. How are you, May?
I am well, Montana. I'm glad to see that you're feeling better. And hi, mom. Hi, Erin, my sister who actually listens. My mom does not. And I'm kind of glad because I say bad things on here.
Sup, Barb? Barb hears me say the bad things, but she loves me nonetheless. Um, so obviously I just jumped right in. And the reason why my heart's beating so fast, because one, this is the most activity that I've done other than going to Walgreens and buying a new toothbrush about an hour ago, since December 29th. Uh,
Oof.
and we, as you are aware, or most of you are aware, unless you're listening to this in the future, we said that we weren't going to post an episode today, but I texted May super late last night because my sleep schedule is off and was like, hey, I'm kind of feeling just recording this and posting it anyways because I'm doing much better. So I'm extra excited to be able to sneak attack this episode to all of you guys, even though you didn't expect to receive it today. So
Can
yeah.
I ask you if you were sitting on the toilet fighting for your life for the last 2 days?
So yeah, 6 days. No, it wasn't a full 6 days of toilet fighting for life. I started feeling sick on the night of the 29th, and I had to travel home on the 30th. And that was the worst.
Traveling sick is awful. And you
And when
have to do it because you got to get home.
and my mom was hugging me. She said, I wish you could just stay a few more days so that I could take care of you. I was like, I don't want anything except my own bed. And I
Hmm.
just trug-a-lugged from Dallas to Pittsburgh. Thankfully, we had a direct flight. Thankfully, we flew Southwest and I paid extra for like A1 through 10 and saved my husband Matt a spot. So we had like the extra leg room row and
Oh, yeah.
I didn't let anyone sit in the middle. I just kept coughing, even though I wasn't coughing. Like that wasn't part of my sickness. I just was trying to make myself look sick, which wasn't even lying, but I couldn't, there was no other way to make myself look sick. Like what should I be like, oh, help me.
Just like
So
visibly moaning in the chair,
yeah.
shivering.
Yeah. So that like, and when I say this is the sickest I've ever been in my whole life, it was the sickest I've ever been in my whole life. When we landed, I couldn't even carry my purse. And I'm dramatic, but I couldn't even carry my purse. Matt carried everything. We got to baggage claim. I immediately laid on the floor again, went horizontal. There was actually a girl that I went to college with on that flight. Pretty sure her name's Bree. Bree, if you're listening to this, or a girl who may not be named Bree. If you ever listen to this, I'm sorry I didn't say hi. I kept looking at her and I was just like, I hope she can telepathically understand that like I am dead and I have no energy to say hello. But I stared at her and I couldn't even pick up my hand to wave. I was just like, I remember you with my eyes. So we got home and that was Saturday. So Sunday was New Year's Eve. I went to Med Express. I tested positive for strep. I was negative for all the other things, all the flus. I think there's two of them nowadays, and COVID. And then I was on my deathbed until about Tuesday night. Then Tuesday night, my fever was gone. At one point, my fever was 103. I don't think my fever's been 103 since I was a baby.
Since you're like an infant, probably.
Yeah, literally. So I like could not move. But anyways, Tuesday night I started feeling better. My husband had been staying in the guest bedroom. Oh, and on New Year's Eve when we were at Med Express, he was waiting for me in the car and all of a sudden started projectile vomiting. And yeah, I wasn't throwing up. Okay. So he's like, I don't know what's going on. I can't stop puking. Like he puked 3 times while I was in probably 20 minutes. So my family had been sick kind of when I was in Texas, but not anything horrible. And then um he was like, I'm pretty sure this is food poisoning because I was just out of it. And when I went to the store to get supplies for you, I got myself potato salad, which he always gets. He's so gross. And I love potato salad, but not like, Mrs. T's. That's the pierogi brand, but whatever. I like to make my own or eat someone's potato salad on 4th of July. I'm not going to like pick it at the store. And then on top of that, he accidentally left it out all night and then the next morning put it in the fridge and then opened it up and like ate the whole thing in one sitting during the Steelers game and was convinced and it made sense, valid point, convinced that that gave him food poisoning and thought it was just ironic. So anyways, fast forward to Tuesday night. Didn't have my fever anymore. I was feeling better. And I was like, Matt, please just come sleep in our bed. Like, I'm not going to get you sick. I don't have a fever, whatever. So he slept in the bed with me. We didn't even touch, not snuggle, nothing. I think my like finger, because at this point we'd just been staring each other for days so like, I don't know. He'd come into the bed and I would just start like giggling. I'd be like, hee. It was like a new form of like, I was like, I like you again. Hee. So I like touched him with my finger and was like, girl boner. And that was it. And I woke up Wednesday morning at 6 a.m. and was like, oh no, ran to the bathroom. It was coming out of both ends.
Oh
And
shit.
yeah. And Matt was like, luckily
Literally.
it didn't ever come out of both ends at the same time. I was really nervous about that because that's never happened to me. And when it was coming out of the bottom end, I literally was thinking to myself, like, you cannot puke right now. Like, you cannot puke until the toilet is flushed and everything is gone, including the smell, or you will die. Like, this will be the end of your life. So Matt came in and was
The
like, are you okay?
discipline, the
Yeah.
discipline to do that.
I was just like focusing on like bottom hole, bottom hole, bottom hole. And
Oh,
I'm so happy I can laugh about it now. Also, clearly I haven't talked in 6 weeks because I really can't shut the fuck up now. Oh, and I'm having my first cup of coffee since probably the 20th
and me and Montana already talked for 45 minutes before we hit
before
record.
this. So, anywho, Matt came to the door and he's like, are you okay? And I just said, I don't think what you had was food poisoning. And then immediately, then for like 48 hours, just I was unwell. I couldn't move. I was just forcing myself. I was laying in bed, just praying that I would go to sleep, just repeating to myself, I am okay. I am healing. I am okay. I am healing. And then I would have to go to the bathroom and one of the ends would explode.
So, in
So
case anyone is wondering, even when Montana is dying, fighting for her life on the toilet, she is still meditating and calmly manifesting her health and wellness. And good for you, man. I think if I was fighting for my life on the toilet, the last thing I would be thinking in my head is, I am well, I am healing, I am well. I would just be like, fuck.
I definitely had those moments. There were times within the 6 days where all I could do, I didn't want to, but like I had to because I would be drenched in sweat while I was sleeping. And I mean, I would roll over and like that side of the bed would be like
Oof.
literally like a bucket of water was poured on it. One night I had to move beds twice. It was it was horrible. So
This is
I
our
know
most glamorous episode yet.
you're all welcome. And I specifically said to May, hey, May, can we wait to hit record until I tell you about this? Because I really feel like it's worth mentioning on the podcast. So you're all welcome. But I was just like, I was like on the bathroom floor, just like, I'm sorry. And I didn't ever think I was being punished, but like I was so delirious that I was just like universe, whatever I've done to deserve this, I apologize. But like I was just out of it. I didn't actually,
Well,
that's
yeah.
crazy. I don't think I was being punished, but it was so bad that like in my misery, I was like trying to like beg for forgiveness to have it end. So
That time I stole a pack of gum when I was 8 years old. Please, God, forgive me.
oh my God, yes. Yeah, all the times I was rude to my youngest brother. I
That's
guess
like the shit I would have to apologize for. I've never done anything bad enough that like I can pick apart my past and think of all the little things I've done. Like one time I accidentally broke my sister's Barbie doll like as a joke, like I was pulling its hair and the head popped off. And then when you put the Barbie's head back on their body, how their neck looks really short and you can never get it back to normal. And I never admitted it. And so it was her favorite Barbie and I ruined it and the neck was short and still to this day, Aaron, that was me.
that is so nice of you you're so kind if that's the worst thing that you've done. I'm gonna
Oh no,
tell
there's other things, but like there's nothing huge.
yeah, well, that made me think of two, and I'm gonna keep this short because this is not what we were planning on talking about.
Mhm.
But one time, my brother and we had another little girl over at the house. We were young, and we were building like a racetrack, and Landon kept coming over and like trying to blow down the racetrack. So I picked up the Matchbox car and I threw it as hard as I could at his head. And he like put his head in his hands and came up, and blood was literally like, and he still has like a huge scar from it. It was horrible. And the
Harry
second
Potter scar.
Yes. The second thing was with my cousins, which I didn't admit until probably 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago at this point, but I was young and we were in Kentucky visiting my family there. It was cold outside, which I was not used to growing up in Texas. So they had started the car to warm it up. And we were playing outside. And I told my cousins, Zach and Dylan, I'm like, hey, let's get in the car and play around. And they're like, okay. I was always like, let's do the worst thing that we should do, that we possibly could do, and let's do it. So we got in the car, and I remember sitting in the driver's seat. I was probably like probably six. And I vividly remember looking back at my cousin Dylan saying, buckle up, we're going for a ride. And I put my seatbelt on and I shifted the car into drive. I didn't know that that was actually going to make it go. And my grandpa's station wagon just rolled into the house. Luckily, it like stopped. It didn't like there was no like ignition, like the
Right.
gas pedal wasn't hit, but it rolled into the house. And in my malicious 6-year-old brain, I unbuckled my seatbelt, ran, climbed into the back seat, and got out of the back door so that if anybody was looking through the house, they wouldn't have seen that I was the one driving. And I did not admit that it was me until about 10 years ago.
Shut the fuck up. That's pretty devious, my friend. And also smart for 6.
Scary smart.
Wow.
But hey, now I
Maybe
went on
that's what you were being punished for when you were fighting for your
maybe.
life on the toilet. You were being punished for lying to your grandfather and
Yep.
driving a station wagon into the house.
Yeah. And
Me and Montana originally, we were like gonna have this beautiful New Year's manifestation
let's get
episode,
into
and
that.
now we're talking about fighting for our lives on the toilet and the bad things we
I've
did as
come so
kids.
far. I've come so far. Now I'm the adult that meditates while I want to die.
Well, you know what? Everybody has that side to them. There's, a little darkness in all of us, I think. And like sometimes when you have darkness in you, it actually makes you work harder and learn more about who you are. And then you can kind of come out in a way that you recognize that like your darkness doesn't make you bad, it just makes you human. And once you can accept that part of you, you can become, or focus more on the beautiful parts of you and know that you have both. And we all have both. We all need to have both because like no one wants to be one dimensional like Ned Flanders, Heidi Ho neighbor all the time. Like we all have our fucked up times. None of us are perfect.
Yin and yang.
Some of us drive cars
Very
into the garages. Some of us murder people. So be thankful that you're just driving cars into garages.
yeah,
Let's put it into perspective here.
exactly. So yeah, thank you for creating that segue for us, May. Let's
You're
get
welcome.
into the
That was
new
my
year.
beautiful words. I
Yeah,
just
that
said
was
something
great.
that wasn't silly.
And you do often, and it's so true. It's also 222 right now, which normally this would be airing, but it's gonna be today. It's just gonna be a little later.
Good.
You too. All right, so I came up with some questions. So basically, what we wanted to focus on was like how to create not just necessarily New Year's resolutions, but also goals for yourself in general without the like stigmatism behind them of like, now I have to do this because I should do this. And if I don't do this, now I have,
Failed.
yeah, now
And
I've
I can't
failed. Now I
continue.
have something to use against myself
Right.
to spiral in the opposite direction.
Correct.
And then it's counterproductive, the
Yes.
definition of that. And Um, that's not to say that there's anything wrong with like setting a goal or having a resolution and sticking to it, because as you guys have seen, everyone that's listened to this podcast up until now, the people that we've brought on, May and I have talked about this a lot today before we hit record, but like how black and what Presley was talking about, the black and white way of seeing things is just unrealistic and un unforgiving, and
Mhm.
there's so many shades of gray in between. And so like the first person that comes to mind for me is Sam. So Sam Adams, who we had on earlier this year, talked about how she signed up for a yoga challenge. And when she signed up for the yoga challenge, same with Presley. Presley talked about this as well. And they were like, well, we love a challenge, so we're going to complete this challenge. And it motivated them and ultimately became something so much bigger than that challenge, right? It helped Sam realize that she needed to give herself more space as a yoga student and less space, less time and energy holding so much space for others. Whereas, like for Presley, it opened up this brand new avenue of what yoga could be for her because she finally understood and felt and embodied the breath within it. Whereas someone like me, I'll speak for myself, if I set a goal like that with rigid boundaries, I don't want to use the word rigid, but it's the only thing that's coming to mind right now. If I am like specific about something, or I give myself, I don't know, like that example specifically, if I tell myself this is what I'm going to do for this many days and this is the way that I'm going to do it, like it's a recipe for self-destruction, truly.
Yeah.
So I have learned, and what I'm still continuing to learn, don't get it twisted, is this idea of, and I can't take credit for this. This is another thing I bring up my mindset coach a lot, and he's been on the show, David May. He talks about, and he might have actually talked about it on the podcast. I can't remember if he said it on the podcast or just to me, but talks about the um, importance of balancing the feminine and the masculine. So the masculine creates the space and then the feminine plays in it. And then the masculine creates the space and the feminine plays in it. And what I'm learning about myself is that I'm not better at creating the space or playing in it. What's hard for me is to transition into the next one, even though I love change and love transitions. So like I'm really good at creating the space and then I'm really good at playing in it. But like balancing those two is really challenging for me. And so creating a challenge and sticking to it doesn't resonate with me as much as creating a boundary that's fluid and saying, okay, within this boundary, these are the steps that I want to take to feel good and ultimately be the best person that I can and reach my goals. And all that to say, inspired me to, I can't take credit, I didn't create these questions, inspired me to find an Instagram post that had these questions on it. And they felt like they encompassed, you could come up with a million questions to like recap last year and focus on what you want to bring in the new year, like the ins and outs things. Love it. Not into it personally because it gives me anxiety, but I love looking at other people's, what's in, what's out for the new year and last year. And I felt like these questions kind of like encompassed all of them. And then what I shared these with May. So we thought about the answers prior to. And one thing that I didn't share with May, which might be obvious, is like how to take the answers from the 2023 recap and utilize those answers to create manageable and empowering resolutions, like big bunny ears, or goals for the year ahead, depending on what the answers were from your recap from last year. So we're going to go through these questions. I'm so excited to hear May's. And I encourage everyone that's listening to take some time for yourself if you feel called. If you don't, because you should not do anything you don't want to do, but also just show up. Woo, it's a fine line. If you feel called to create your own lists as well. So
Real quick,
yeah,
just going
go.
back to what you were saying about the masculine and the feminine, I would I would argue that the feminine creates the space and the masculine plays in it because women create the space and the
Ooh.
men play in it. And that's all I have to say about that.
Yes, that's also a good reminder that like masculine and I totally agree with what you're saying, but masculine and feminine energy can get
That's true. It's not
she
men and
already knows
women.
what I'm gonna say. Yeah.
It's not men and women. You're
Masculine, and
totally right.
I'm just gonna say it for the listeners. I see you guys. Masculine and feminine energy sometimes gets mixed up with gender, like man
Mhm.
and female, but really it's like masculine is the creator, the power, the source, the fuel, the drive, the willpower, the ego. And feminine is the flow, the creativity, the space, the effortlessness, the all that stuff. So, but yes, I couldn't agree more when it comes to gender. We fucking create the space and the
Women
men
create the
play
space.
in it.
But you're
Yes.
right. They're two different things. I'm actually glad that you said that, because as soon as that came out of my mouth, I thought the same thing. But me, being a woman and like aligning more with the idea of feminine energy and being female, and I personally feel like, watching women and mothers create space, family space, like just loving energy space, that to me just feels like the feminine energy creates the space. But after you put it that way, I get what you're saying. I'm
And I'm
glad
glad
you.
you I'm glad you said it too, because I'm sure like if you're thinking it, other people are as well, right?
Right.
And huge reminder, which I hope that we talk about a lot on this podcast, is that like so many things can be true at once. And
Yes.
there
There's no one
are a
divine
lot of
truth.
right ways,
Exactly.
a
Okay.
ton of right ways. So the first question, and how about May we popcorn back and forth who goes first? That way it's
Okay.
not always you or me having to go first. So the first question is, who or what made you feel alive in 2023? Do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
I'll go first.
Flip a coin. All right, hit it.
Okay.
Help.
A few things. Mostly, I would say my friendships made me feel alive. Um, I was actually out last weekend with two of my very close longtime friends, like decades at this point. And at one point, we were sitting at a bar laughing so hard that I literally thought I was going to die. And like in that moment, I felt like such extreme gratitude, because like I can enjoy my days and I can have fun times, and I can, I rarely have a day that I feel like I'm not living or I don't feel right. But that moment when I felt like I was laughing so hard that I was going to die, like I couldn't control it, I could not stop laughing. I just felt alive and grateful for those two people, Lisa and Carrie. Hello, you're the best. And we are so close at this point that we have sisterly love, that we just give each other shit and bully each other and say mean things to each other. But like, I do not laugh harder than when I'm with them. And that's been like that for a long time. And then also for my yoga friends, because their like excitement and their passion about yoga is just like so aligned with mine that, like even you and I, we could get on here and talk for hours about this stuff, like, and it never gets old. And it's just nice to have that shared like passion, that community with people that, feel the same way I do about the things that I love. And then one a little more specific one, this was a moment I had traveling this past summer. We went to Sequoia National Park. And I don't know if anybody has ever been there, but you drive into this national park that's just like, it looks dead. You're on like, there's mountains, there's deserts. You don't see one tree. You're driving for 30 minutes up switchbacks up the side of a mountain. It's friggin' terrifying. You look over the side, you think you're going to die. And then like, you're doing this for 45 minutes and you're like, where are the trees? Where's this magical forest? Like, what is happening? And you just suddenly turn this one corner and you are like in this magnificent, magical like forest of these trees that are just like the smell. They're like old and ancient and just like wild. They look like you're in another planet. And we got out of the car and we just like walked out. The first like little pullover we saw, we like pulled over, walked out into this little meadow with just giant sunbeams coming down. And I like looked up and like I just had a friggin' moment, like a spiritual moment where like I realized like my God is a tree, because I was just so friggin' like full of like gratitude in that moment that I wanted to sit there all day long. And it was just like unbelievable. Um, uh, like 20 years ago, I worked in Yellowstone National Park for 3 summers during college. And it's out in Wyoming. And it's the same place where, like, if you grew up out east or, anywhere in the suburbs, and suddenly you just find yourself in this, like, overwhelmingly beautiful place. And you connect to nature in a way that, like, your heart just expands, like, you can actually feel it in your chest. It sounds cheesy, but it's so true. And it, like, never goes back down, because now, whenever I go back to those places, I, like, immediately feel that sense of just like home and like just adventure. And it brought me back. It had been a while since I felt like that. So that was like something that made me feel very alive.
You painted that picture perfectly.
Thank you.
That's the juice, I say.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. So
What made you feel alive this year? People,
my
places.
I made like shorter bullet points kind of,
Hmm.
but on the top of my list is traveling. And when I thought deeper into it, obviously, this goes without saying, I love being in the places that I'm traveling to, duh. But I'm learning, I know this about myself, but I feel like I'm learning it more and more, or it's becoming richer and richer, more true over the years. But like the actual act of traveling, like leaving my house, getting in the Uber, driving to the airport, being in the airport, which most people, when I say most people, I'm talking about my husband, despise. I love sitting there, looking
Me
around,
too.
wondering where people are going. What, like it just talking about it right now, I could cry. I love the act of traveling, getting to like sit on an airplane and get to like meet the flight attendants. And I just love, I think I have so many thoughts right now that I've been thinking for some time. And I feel like I just figured out a way to describe all of them. And it's like, and I don't want this to come off as wrong, or I don't want this to come off any type of way. This just is how I feel. So like as you talked about May, like you feel alive with the first two things you talked about were like relationships with people that you know so well. Of course, like those things make me feel alive, and I hope that I'm not taking them for granted by saying this, but what makes me feel more alive is like short, tiny little
Interactions.
of interaction, yeah, of people that I'll never see again. Like that gives me so much more life feeling than my, and I feel like my friends and all those things, obviously my family, they're important. They make me feel grounded, but they're less of like, God, I say this with so, I want to be so gentle with the way that I
Do
say
not feel
it.
bad because what you're saying is not wrong.
Don't.
It's just not.
I feel like I've always been so independent, and nothing's ever made me feel rooted ever until I met my husband. And so like I cherish my relationships so much, but I also I don't want to say I could live without them, but for lack of better term, like I feel like I could, and maybe this would last 6 months or 6 years and then I would go crazy, but I feel like I could just be a nomad and just like meet people randomly and have like my one person to go back to it at the end of each night and be like totally fine. But of course, like I'd want to rekindle all of the interactions that I have with all the people that mean so much to me. So that's a really long explanation of
I
travel.
love that. It just sounds like you love adventure and like having meaningful interactions with complete strangers that you'll never see again. But like, it's just kind of a nice reminder that humanity is a good place and that of all of the ugly things that happen and all of the hateful things that we're like fed every day, that you can go out into the world and find some random person you'll never see again and have something that means something and just talk to them even for 10 minutes. And like, you can connect in that way that makes it's just a nice reminder that people are good and that, adventures are good and that your world isn't small and that you could
Yeah.
go and like expand your heart to all these different places and people. And I think that, like you said, if you want to go back to your connections, it's not that you could live without them. I think it's just that maybe you feel so grounded in the connections you have at home that it just makes you
Mhm.
even more exciting and thankful to meet people that you don't know. And like, there's nothing
That's
wrong
a
with
good way
that.
of putting it. It's not that I could live without them. It's that like I'm so grounded and sure that they'll be there that like I feel
Exactly.
confident. And this is something that's really, Matt gets kind of frustrated when I say this because I don't think he understands, because I know that he doesn't understand what I'm saying. But when I travel alone, which I love to do, I actually got to travel a lot alone this year. And I tend to, just for whatever reason, end up making friends with like the dad of like at the airport or the bar or whatever. Like I made friends with this dad um multiple times at airport bars, but one specifically at JFK. He was going to Argentina and I was going to Europe, and we just like chatted away. And these dads, quote unquote, that I meet are like truly, at least in that moment, for that blip in time, like they're good men that have no intentions of anything other than like having a conversation with me. And that like brings me so much joy and like hope for the future because it's, we've talked about
Some
how
men
we
are
used to be
good.
men. Yeah. And there's another dad that I met at a bar in London, and same
Mhm.
thing, like he was a pilot for a commercial company, and he was just incredible. And I've just had so many conversations with all of these dads all over the world this year, and they made me feel so like just like, I don't know, held like a daughterly figure in a weird
Mhm.
fucking way. But anyways,
For
so
any men listening, being a woman doing anything by yourself,
yes,
every woman being alone, doing something alone, traveling somewhere alone, we've all had at least one bad experience with a strange man.
yes,
So, what Montana is saying is that it's just really nice to have an interaction with a man that you've never met before, who's not being weird or saying inappropriate things. And he's just a normal old person connecting with you on a human level and
yes.
not as a level of you're like an object. And I
Yeah.
think that's probably
And
what he's.
that I had multiple of those this year all over the world, and that brought me a lot of joy in life. So other things that made me feel alive, taking yoga for my favorite yoga instructors, eating delicious food makes me feel alive,
Oh, yeah.
drinking delicious wine with that makes me feel alive. Riding roller coasters, which I'm going to save my explanation down the road because it'll come, but
Mhm.
to keep it short, I had a vision in Shavasana in a yoga class a few months ago of like, I just need fun. And I love roller coasters growing up. So I finally got to go ride some roller coasters when I was home in Dallas, and it made me feel so alive. I loved it. Um, Giving, like any sort of giving makes me feel alive. I love the change of weather, no matter what it's changing to, that makes me feel alive. It like replenishes just stagnant energy. um, the 300-hour trainees and facilitators that I got to engage with this year, they definitely made me feel alive. Um, Being with my friends and family, I did write this specifically though without an agenda. If I'm able to be with friends and family and we just are chilling, I couldn't feel more alive. And then also this podcast, and getting to connect with kind of like what May said, getting to connect with all the people that we've connected with, and running, because I just started diving into that, and that has, woof, if that doesn't make me feel alive, I don't know what does. I think that actually it's the bottom of the list because it's the thing that I'm least familiar with right now, but it's honestly top of the list, well, right under traveling, for like how alive it makes me feel. So, the reason why I asked this question is because now, once you look at the things that you've outlined, um, in 2024, instead of creating resolutions that are specific or goals that are rigid, how can you create more of these things and be around more of these people in 2024 in an effort to feel more alive? And that gets me excited. So, number two, what am I proud of? So I'll go first this time. Top of my list, I'm proud of managing my schedule and all my jobs because I had a lot of shit to do this year and I did it. I made it through. So I'm also proud of balancing both work and play. I'm not going to get into what I want to do better because that's not here yet, but I did a good job of balancing work and play. I'm proud that I gave my husband space to learn with his new business instead of feeling like I need to control everything. I'm also proud of traveling. I got to travel a ton. I'm proud of the support and service that I gave to others. I'm really proud of the fact that I trained a puppy. I'm still training a puppy. That's really hard. Still really hard. I am proud that I facilitated my first 300 hour. I took steps to hosting retreats. I wrote that I didn't go crazy. And I am proud that I started to train for a marathon. So those are the things I'm proud of. May, what are you proud of?
I'm proud of you too.
Thank
Good
you.
job. Also with the running thing, because that is one thing that I don't think is going to be on my list ever. But stranger things have happened. And I know that you probably felt that way at some
I
point, and
did.
here you are. So you never know.
I
Maybe
did.
your passion for it will drag me in a little. Um, I am proud of making the decision to go through yoga teacher training in 2019. because it's something I had put off for a ridiculous amount of time, something I had questioned and overthought and thought of every reason why not. And I did it, and I was good at it, and it felt right. And I continue to do it, and I continue to feel right doing it. And it's given me some really great opportunities and led me to some of the people that like I enjoy the most in the world. So it was really just like, it's weird to think about how people procrastinate things and talk themselves out of things that end up just being the thing that like changes their life. You know what I mean? In the best way
That
possible.
just such the,
The juice.
yeah. Oof.
Um, well, because when things are big, when things feel big to you and when they mean a lot to you, they can also
Weird.
bring you the most disappointment, and they can bring you the most anxiety, because the idea of failing at it, or, not having it turn out the way you want, is devastating when you hold something in such high regard. So I think that, the things that mean a lot to people are usually the things that make them the most scared. And so it's just kind of a nice, for me anyways, I put things off all the time. I'm scared of a lot. And so this was a thing that for me, it just paid off for me to like go through with it. And it makes me proud that I like got over that hump, which was just this completely self made hump of bullshit in my head that wasn't even true or real. Um, but that makes me happy.
Your ego protecting you.
Pretty much, yeah. I'm proud of completing my real estate courses and passing all my exams on the first try, because
Woo-hoo!
I'm not a good test taker, but
Did it.
I'm officially a licensed real estate agent in the state of Pennsylvania. And little plug, if you need any real estate stuff, contact me. I won't say bad words. I'll be very professional. I'm very capable of maintaining a professional, appearance when necessary. Um, and I'm proud of this podcast. I'm proud that like this is another thing where you brought it up one day and I was like, sure, that sounds fun. But in my head, I was like, oh, it's 6 months down the road. And the next day you're like, oh, here's a link to Spotify. Download it right now. We're gonna meet tomorrow. And I was like, oh fuck, we're really doing it. We're just going for it. But I'm glad we did, because like you said, like just even talking to the people, it doesn't matter. We could have 20 people listening to this for the rest of our lives. And just the conversations we've had and the time we've spent talking about something we love, it's just worth it. It just feels good and right. Um, and then I'm also proud of being a mom. And I'm going to get a little emotional, I
Oh,
think, because Maya is just so friggin' amazing. And like every day, she's just this person that like understands herself and her feelings, and she knows how to talk about them, and she knows how to like address her feelings, and she knows how to express herself, and she's kind. And like I don't want to take credit for it because she's just an amazing person, but I am going to take credit for it because I'm raising her. And we have these conversations all the time where I try to teach her all of the things that I wish I knew when I was her age, just being a person with a lot of feelings and a lot of intuition, and just like watching her like really listen to what I have to say and like use it in her life. She's the coolest. And I'm proud that I have a part of that.
I'm proud of you too. And I think just by giving her the space to be whoever she is just enough. And then on top of that, to give her guidance in a way that you wish that you would have had, because you guys seem to be very similar, is you should take credit for that and you should be proud, because it's one thing to be an awesome human. It's a whole other thing to be supported in being an awesome human. So,
Yeah. And I the one thing that's been hard for me, and the thing that I try to do the most, is that I am not telling her what to do or what I think she should do, but I'm listening to her. I'm
mhm.
listening to her every word. And I'm letting her say the things she wants to say and feel the things she wants to feel. And I'm just kind of trying to offer her like guidance through it, instead of like putting my shit on her. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just glad, and it just means a lot to me as a parent to be able to give her the space to be her own person. And like, I tell her all the time, I'm like, I have your back no matter what you think, no matter what you feel, like I'm here for you. As long as you can talk to me about it, then great. It doesn't matter how many times you mess up, doesn't matter what you do. Like, I'm always here. And as long as you can tell me the truth and like let me know the truth about what's going on in your life, we're going to be fine. And it's cool that she can share that stuff with me.
I feel like that's the biggest thing that you can do as a human. So
I agree.
kudos.
Let people
So
be who they are.
yeah. And yeah, I wish in my next life, I hope you're my mom, but I also love you, Barb. It'd be cool to have two moms. So we have two more and we're going to get through them. They're actually, I have less for these anyways, because May is going to go teach some yoga. But so well, the point of that question first is really just an opportunity to acknowledge yourself. So not to like focus on what to do in the future, but instead just a moment to like reflect on and acknowledge all the amazing things that you have done, that you are, that you're capable of, and that you're going to continue to keep doing. So the next question, 3 of 4, is what made you feel bad in 2023? And May, you want to go first?
Ugh. um, I think, and this is like ongoing, I think this is, you know, pretty common for most people. Just like witnessing other people after just coming off of saying everybody should let other people do and be who they are. Um, it's hard sometimes to, you know, witness bad things happening to even strangers in other countries and trying to make sense of why people behave the way they are or why they aren't more like you or why they don't do things the way you would do them. Um, and that's not over stupid stuff like why isn't this person putting oat milk in their coffee like me? It's like why does this person feel the need to, you know, talk down to people or whatever? That affects me deeply. And like just keeping my boundaries in that I have to let other people do and say and be who they are and know that I can only control how I am going to be and what I am going to do and what I am going to say. um it's just hard to witness bad things happening in other people's lives in the world and know that like I can't help everybody, I can't fix everything. And I think a lot of people's first instinct when they see bad things happening is like how can I help, how can I get in there and like fix it all and help this one person or these 80 people. And it's just kind of hard to come to the conclusion sometimes that like maybe sometimes people don't want to be helped, maybe sometimes there's things that are going to happen regardless of how hard you try to fix them. um, and that overall makes me feel bad because like I want to fix all the things and help all the people. And I think a lot of people feel that way. And it's just hard to sometimes know that bad things are going to happen and you're going to have to witness them and feel helpless. And that's it.
See, and as similar as we are, I love that there are moments like this where they're not for because one is good or bad or better or worse, but I am like when I see bad things happening in the world, for better or for worse, my first instinct is like not how can I help those people, but instead I immediately go to myself and I'm like, what can I change within me? Because then I do feel, and whether that's right or wrong, or if it's a means to feel like I have control over it, it's just what happens. It's my natural instinct. And so, and I think that there, like we've talked about a lot today, there is no black and white. So like there's people that focus on how they can help others, and that is their their role or responsibility. And then there's people that focus on how they can better themselves, and that's their role and their responsibility. So I think everyone has a specific duty in their life, and to be able to find out and figure out what that duty is like so important. And so what made me feel bad is zooming really in, and I literally only focused on myself, even though definitely there's things in the world that make me feel bad. And really, it's just overdoing anything. So I wrote overeating, oversleeping, over drinking, over working out, over resting, over working, over playing, over
Mhm.
hanging out with friends and family, or overdoing alone time. So like literally overdoing anything does not make me feel good, makes me feel bad. And this one might be kind of obvious, but this question, whatever you answer to it, are things to leave behind, right? Like things to let go of and to do less of in 2024 or moving forward. And that leads me to our very last question, which is how can I support myself to have a good 2024? And I was like, all right, I'm going to make this short and sweet. So I gave myself 3 bullet points: balance, boundaries, and honesty. And I feel like those encompass everything that I just talked about with question 1, 2, and 3.
Absolutely. Keeping it simple. I like that. Um, I like what you said about when you see other things happening that are bad, you focus on what can I fix about myself that's making me feel bad about that thing, or just what can I fix about myself in general. And I think that, like you said, that's not a right or wrong thing, but also I think it is kind of a right thing because you cannot ever control what other people do, ever. And so taking that desire or need to control what other people do and turning it to yourself of like, okay, well, obviously this is an opportunity for me to fix something or control something or just even notice something about myself. Why do I feel the need to fix, to help, whatever? Obviously there's something I should probably fix or help myself with that would fulfill that need. And I think that
Yeah.
that's
And
something that
not,
I should work on in 2024 is just turning all of that scope, back to myself. And this one's simple. I got a planner for the first time in my life.
yes.
I am not a person that is good at keeping planners, having calendars. Like I went on vacation with friends last summer and literally up until like the week before we left, I was making them remind me like what day we were actually leaving. And so they literally like at this point probably just like hate my guts. And like Carrie, the one I talked about who makes me laugh, she's also the worst. And she just like annihilates me. And so I got a planner. I have so far filled out the entire month of January, and my goal
Look at
is to fill
you.
out 1 month at a time so I can keep it more organized in my head. Because if I do the whole year, it's going to lose me. I need to focus on
Yeah.
smaller time. So I have all of January planned because, like you said, I now have like 3 jobs, and there's no way I can survive in this world if I don't have something organizing my thoughts and
Plus,
dates.
plus this podcast, which hopefully becomes, I don't want to use the word job, but a sense of
Right.
income down the road. So, and it's
It's
regardless of if
yes,
the job or we're monetizing it or whatever, it's definitely something like
it
it takes
does. It takes time
focus.
and planning, and
Yeah.
there's people that we're meeting months out in advance, and I have to have that shit organized or I'm gonna I'm gonna be struggling.
I'm
So
proud of you. And then there's me. I love planners and I have my little stickers and
there's the yin
everything.
and the yang.
But I
You're gonna
agree.
have to
I have
teach
to
me.
do everything in a monthly basis. Otherwise, it's just too overwhelming. All right. Well, we have gone over time and May might be late to teaching. So if you're taking her 4 p.m. sculpt on Friday the 5th and she's late, it's my fault.
I won't be late. I'll be there with my coffee, with my game face on, ready to fuck shit up.
Well, thank you guys so much. And May, thank you. I'm so happy that we got to connect last minute. If there's
Same. I'm
anything we're
glad you're
good at,
feeling better.
it's last. I'm so happy too. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, guys. Well, happy New Year. And next week we will start with guests again. So stay tuned. Peace.
Okay. Bye.